this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. It is about time for us to have a guest on here and talk about the mindset shift that we as entrepreneurs need to make when we shift from being just a therapist to also being a business owner. So we have Cameisha Brewer here with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Julia. I'm excited.
I am equally excited. We've got a lot to cover today. So let's start off with some background. Fill the audience in on your career climb and where you're at today.
Sure. So I'm Cameisha Brewer Dickerson. I'm an LPC. I practice down south. I'm here in the state of Arkansas. And so in my therapy practice, I serve high achieving professional women with high functioning anxiety. That's been my niche for the last few years. I've been in private practice for 5 years now, full time for 3. So I still kind of feel like a newbie, but I've got some years in now and I'm excited about the journey. But my journey to private practice was similar to a lot of other therapists. I started out working in agency life. I worked domestic violence centers. I worked for College of Education as an academic counselor. And then I relocated to a new city, which meant I didn't know anything. So I ended up just applying whoever would take me first because, you got to pay bills and pay rent. So I ended up working at an inpatient psych hospital, started in admissions and referrals, doing those intake assessments, talking with the psychiatrist to figure out what unit of the hospital this patient needed to be placed on. A lot of triage in the lobby, nightmare. I worked the evening shift. So, you get all the things. You get the people that are actively psychotic. Some of it's substance induced. Some of it's a UTI. Sometimes you have children who threaten to kill a teacher at school in kindergarten, right, with scissors. And then you have people that are like straight detox who are like passed out in the lobby. So I got a lot of experience immediately working in that setting. And I was like, I'm going to pass my boards. I'm going to take that NCE. I'm going to pass because I don't want to be in admissions anymore. I want to go to the unit and provide treatment. And that's kind of how I got started. Got to the unit. It was an adolescent unit. Loved it. But it was a lot. I didn't understand. It was pretty much a penitentiary for adolescents, and no one told me that. And I was in supervision. I told my supervisor, I was like, so how long does it take me to build a private practice? Because this is not going to work for your girl. And he was like, oh, it's going to take at least 2 years. I said, oh, no, I don't have time for 2 years of this kind of setting. So I learned business and I got out as fast as I could. So that's how I got here.
Ooh. So what a great foundation. And I love hearing about people's early experiences because it really does shape the type of business owner that we become and who ends up being our ideal client. So when you say learned business, what were your early go-tos to start that shift from therapist to business owner?
So my early go-tos were whoever had a live video, a free webinar, a free workshop, a free anything. I was there. I was taking notes. I was doing all the things because I didn't have the budget. Like I didn't have the finances to get in their high level course or like the mastermind coaching program. Like I don't have all that money, but all the free stuff, I'm in it. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to save money. And then I think I bought my first major investment. It was a $500 course and I was terrified, but I had saved for several months. And I'm glad I did it because I learned what business owners do. I learned how entrepreneurs create programs and what goes into modules. My background is in education. So even
Okay.
before I went inpatient, I was working in school districts, doing some behavior management, working at clinics for toddlers. Who are newly diagnosed with autism, working with their families, still teaching ABCs and colors and safe touch. But I
Yeah.
love education. So I was like, oh, I would be great at this. I can put together a course. I can write a workshop, curriculum slide deck. I can do all the things. So being in those programs taught me business and pricing and how other people do what. So from the time we got
Mm-hmm.
on the workshop, did we get an email? Was there a countdown video? How many reminders did we get? Was there a Facebook group? Like I learned what they were teaching as far as the content, but I also studied the strategy behind every single thing they did every time I made an
Mm-hmm.
investment. So that's how I got started.
And so we started chatting a little bit before we started recording. And this is such a common theme that I hear for those of us that are in similar positions to you and I, that there is such a lack of training in our programs to be mental health professionals regarding the business side, marketing, and all that it entails to be a successful entrepreneur. So you got your hands on everything that you could, and it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like that definitely helped. And then from there, investing in a program. What are some things that you would suggest, kind of knowing what you know now, for those people that are listening that are where we were and are considering starting their own practice and want to be as prepared as possible so that they can make that mindset shift easier, because it has to happen at some point. The only way to be successful in business is to accept the fact that it is a business. And with that, you have to be profitable.
Yes. Yeah, so I definitely recommend if you're studying the gurus, right? We won't name them, but we know
Mm-hmm.
who they are. We see them on the ads. We see them doing the summits
Yeah.
with each other. It's kind of like the same people in the same circles all the time. That doesn't mean that those are your only options, okay? So I recommend getting to know people and just studying the
Yeah.
other experts that are in the Facebook groups, like who's responding to the
Mm-hmm.
therapist, who's answering questions and not in a condescending way, but saying, hey, it's okay that you messed up. It's okay that you're struggling with charging the client your late cancellation fee because they no showed or canceled at the last minute. It's okay that this is scary for you. But studying and getting to know the people that you want to work with and the people that inspire you, not because they talk about SEO all day, every day, not because they talk about copywriting, but because they're genuine people and you connect with their
Mm.
story or you connect with their niche and how they got here. If they had to work through grief and anxiety while in grad school, if they failed the NCE 14 times before they passed, like those kind of nuances of the story, look
Mm.
for those type of connections and not just, oh, they're famous, I know they're going to help me. Because full transparency, I know your podcast is juicy, so here we go. So some of the people that I work with in coaching, they've been in the coaching programs with the gurus and got
Yeah.
lost and they didn't feel supported, or they felt like the material was more advanced than what they were ready for. And so if you're looking to do any kind of learning or investing, make sure that the person teaches on the level that you learn. They teach in a way that's conducive to your learning style. And they're not just telling you a hype story that you can do all the things without a consultation call. You can do all the things, but you got to run ads and spend thousands. You really don't, which is why I teach relationship-based marketing, because it's free and it's going to cost you time. But study the person that you're thinking about working with and you're thinking about learning from, and not just getting on the bandwagon with
Mm-hmm.
everyone else.
Cameisha, you're hitting my soul today. So hearing you say that is exactly aligned with why I started this podcast in the first place. So very value driven, one of those compassion for sure. So always
Mhm.
operating from that place of trying to understand where people are coming from and never losing sight of their journey. And we'll never know it fully, but trying to understand as much as we can, whether that's as a therapist or whether that's as a consultant or whether that's a coach. But I would as a business owner, as a leader, now I'm an employer to multiple people, but integrity. And I can hear
Yes.
that coming through in you so strongly, in authenticity. And so I have yet to hear somebody say what you just said, the way that you said it. And it's almost like you took kind of what has been in my head lately. We can get stuck in that comparison trap so easily. We have access to so much now, whether it's social media, mailing lists, YouTube videos, podcasts, whatever it may be. And it's so easy to get lost in what everyone else is doing and where they think you should be and the results that they're suggesting that you can achieve. And what you're speaking to is really, it's so much about the person. Do they inspire you? For me, it's, are they doing something that intrigues me and are a few steps ahead and have something to offer? But there has to be more than just that finish line. It's more about the process. And you were talking about learning style and making sure that it really aligns with you. What would you suggest for people to determine if the person is the right fit? Because not everybody offers a consultation call. We don't always get a window into their program before we sign up.
Yeah, I recommend, because we're therapists and we've done assessments, like do an assessment. What are they teaching?
Yeah.
How long is it? And compare, okay, well, this coach's program is 6 weeks. I'm a slow learner. I'm probably gonna need 6 months. So if I have to go to a
Mm-hmm.
6 month program, how much is that gonna cost me? What is the price difference? Do I get to meet with them one-on-one? If I have a question in between our coaching calls, do they answer me or does someone else from their team answer? And if it's someone else from the team,
Right.
are they smart? Like, are they as knowledgeable as the coach, or are they a placeholder because the coach has gotten so successful they don't want to do touch points anymore with the people that are in the program? And just seeing if that feels good to you. Like if it feels slimy, for lack of a better word, then maybe it's not a good fit. I
Mm-hmm.
think we should always honor our hearts and that little feeling on the inside that's like, hey, this is not it,
Mm-hmm.
because it can be
Yeah,
expensive. You know what I mean? And
it can.
I'm a business owner and I believe in making investments, but I also believe in making smart investments. And I've made some that were not smart. I've made some where I thought I was going to
Mm-hmm.
get more than what I did. And now I make decisions differently because I do more research. I take longer to buy. And that's something I teach therapists too. Like in the pandemic, people were at
Mm-hmm.
home bored and just watching videos on how to knit a sweater for your cat for 6 hours because we had nothing else to do. Life is not the same, right? So people are more sophisticated as far as like buying decisions, and it takes them longer. So you have to come with value. You can't just show up
Yeah.
with a bunch of fluff and pretending to know what you're talking about and pretending you can teach people, because people are looking for something different. So this is an opportunity for the
Mm-hmm.
coaches and the consultants with integrity who genuinely care about people, who want to build relationships with people, and who follow up when the program is over. That may be one of your questions too. When the program is over, do they care about me? Do they check on me? Do I get to stay in the Facebook group? Do they kick me out? Can I rewatch the videos in the portal?
Mm-hmm.
Or do we break up? Like, is this the end of the road once the program is over? And
That's
all of
good
those
points.
things may be a part of your assessment. They're mine now. I'm like, okay, so what happens? Is there a next step? If I love this program, can I continue? How much does that cost? Do I get a discount because I'm a previous student from another program? Like, I'm asking
Right?
all the questions now. So I definitely
Mm-hmm.
recommend y'all take time and study, do your research, ask a lot of questions. And if they're hesitant and giving you the
Mm-hmm.
runaround with asking your initial questions, that's
Yeah.
probably going to be how they support you after you pay them as well. So you get to make a decision about if they deserve your money.
These are great tips. So do your research, take your time when making a decision, go based on your gut and your intuition and how you feel. And you've got your screening questions. And just like I'm thinking about the hiring process,
Yeah.
throughout my journey of building my team, my interview process is very different now than it was in the beginning. And I've adjusted the questions and what I ask because I'm so much clearer on who I am, the team that we have, the culture, the mission, etc. So that was awesome. So I would love to hear more about your process, and let's talk about your book, The CEO Clinician. So how did that all come about? And let's hear about your process working with people.
Yeah, so the CEO clinician has been in the making for a long time. I'm 32, but I feel like I'm
Mm-hmm.
like 50 just because of all the experience that I've gotten over the years. I started in the nonprofit setting as a 19-year-old. I founded a nonprofit. So I was a nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
CEO immediately as a freshman in college and doing all
Hey
the
now,
things.
that's impressive.
Thank you. So it's a mentoring program for teenage girls. So I learned how to be a CEO first. And my parents were
Mm-hmm.
pastors and my mom was an assistant principal. So I was always around entrepreneurs and speakers and business owners and helping people with their lifestyle and providing education and service to the community. So I kind of have lived that lifestyle my whole life. And so I wanted to package those things and help people get the mental health treatment that they needed. So through the years, I learned marketing, I learned branding, I learned leadership, I learned decision making. And so when I became a therapist, I was able to build my practice quickly, but I noticed that other therapists were struggling and I couldn't figure out why. And I was like, what makes me different from other therapists if we had the same training? And the difference was my background in business. And so I wanted to package my CEO knowledge from all the years and all of the influences that I had and pair that with the clinical side of what I also love. So I geek out all things mental health, business, putting things together, streamlining a process. And so the book was always lingering. And so I started doing, my practice is full. It's full most of the year. I can squeeze 1 or 2 clients in every now and then because it's an internal referral from a current client or a former client. So my income was capped. And so I was like, I need to package the rest of my skills and the rest of my expertise and learn how to monetize. So I started doing workshops, and the workshops became a course, and the course became a coaching program called Private Practice Ready for the newbies. So with that, all that curriculum is the book, The CEO Clinician. So my course is an 8-week program. It's called Private Practice Ready. And so I teach therapists how to set up, structure, market, and scale their mental health private practice in just 60 days. And I can get people there because I have a background in education. And so everything that I teach is streamlined, it's practical, and it's customizable. So like I don't expect therapists who live in the middle of New York City where there's a lot going on all the time to market in a way like a Southern therapist in the middle of Texas, right? Because if you're in rural Texas, you're not going to have as many options for business and networking opportunities. So we have to customize your marketing strategy in a way that works for your lifestyle. Sometimes I get therapists who are new moms or currently pregnant or they're older and they have chronic illness. Your marketing strategy has to be different. And so we take all of the aspects from your personal life and incorporate those things into your marketing strategy to make sure it's something that you can do and you don't feel overwhelmed by it. So my framework and course curriculum from those programs with Private Practice Ready is the foundation for the book, The CEO Clinician. So I started a podcast in January called The CEO Clinician, of course, just to stay on brand with things so people aren't confused. But the podcast,
I appreciate that.
the podcast was something that I was like, I love teaching and I love talking, and I want people to not feel like they have to do something because everyone else is doing it. Example, private pay practices. They don't work for everybody. And I don't think that the therapists who choose the private pay business model are better than the therapists who take insurance. I think that's a personal preference depending on your niche and depending on what your people want to pay for and how they want to pay. And so if you're hell bent on private pay, but your audience has great Blue Cross Blue Shield benefits, you may not get paid. They're going to just go find another therapist who takes their insurance. So the mindset piece comes in like, okay, what kind of therapist do I want to be? What type of business model do I want to have? How can I serve people, or am I creating barriers for the people I want to serve because of my preferred business model? And is that a fear because you're afraid of insurance, or you're afraid of being audited, or you're afraid of doing all the things? So we get all into the nitty gritty of those things because that's a part of the foundation for your private practice. So that's essentially what the book is walking therapists through the entire framework, giving them practical steps and tools on how to build a private practice so they can be informed every step of the journey and not feel like they have to go back to YouTube University and spend 6 hours watching videos that have nothing to do with them and their practice, but they can walk away with it like, okay, chapter 2, Cameisha taught me what to do. I'm going to go do that. Like I put homework in the book because I want them to do it, take a screenshot of it, send it to me that it's been completed, and we can talk about it in the DM so I can support you and answer your questions. Like I wanted it to be that kind of resource. So that is the book.
Well, I can't wait to get my hands on it. I love how you described the progression from where everything began and then kind of how it evolved, because that's always very intriguing to me. And you're taking all of this information that not only are you living it, and you've seen success not only in your own career, but also in the people that you've helped and that have completed your program. And then you're providing it in another way for people that learn differently and still want to have that access, different price point. And so you have all these different opportunities for people to get access to this really helpful information. So That is very much appreciated. So I know you touch upon a couple of themes in the book. So you talk about mindset, money, marketing, and movement. People definitely need to grab a copy, but can you give an overview of why those are the four primary things that you incorporate?
Yeah. As far as the mindset piece, I think the mindset piece has to be the shift that we were talking about earlier
Mm-hmm.
of understanding like, yes, you are a therapist, but you're also a business owner. So the
Right.
decisions you make in your therapy practice, they kind of determine whether or not you can pay your bills. And bills
Mm-hmm.
meaning daycare for your kids, or
Right.
if you can take a vacation, if you can afford to take paid time off. So you need both mindsets. I'm not saying be so business that you don't give a single grace pass to a client who cancels because their child is sick and they had to leave work early and go pick them up. Like, I'm still be human and be compassionate and empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you need a policy in place
Yeah.
because every session that you have open where you're not making money, can you afford to not make any money in that time slot? And if
Exactly.
that happens 5 times within a month, that could be $500 to $700 for most people, which is,
Mm-hmm.
2 car payments or whatever. So teaching therapists about that business mindset and thinking about, okay, what things do I need to have in place that will facilitate my therapy practice and the well-being of the clients? The
Mm-hmm.
money piece is a part of that, and pricing correctly and not underpricing your
Mm-hmm.
services, whatever that means for you and your ideal clients. But everybody's not going to charge $350 an hour just because a few therapists talk about it in a Facebook group. Because the other thing is, a lot of therapists, they bought a practice from somebody. They inherited a very established practice, but they don't talk about that part. They just talk about how much money they're making now. Well, someone else did the groundwork
Yes.
for you and you bought it, which is fine. But when you're talking to a newbie, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm only charging 125. Keep your 125 if that's what works for you in the area that you're
Mm-hmm.
in. But making sure that your pricing structure makes sense and it sets you up for success long term. The
Yep.
marketing, I teach relationship based marketing. I'm old school,
Mm-hmm.
but I teach therapists how to build their practice, creating a presence online and offline. Do we need social media? Yes. Are we live and die by social media? No. Are we live and die by SEO? No, because I'm 5 years in. I've never worked with an SEO person to optimize my website. Should I? Absolutely. But my practice is full. So with it being full, if it got more
Mm-hmm.
optimized, what would I do with the growth and the influx of clients that I don't have capacity to see? So everything has to be customized, and
For
it's okay
sure.
to not do something just because it's recommended by the experts and we love them. But sometimes what they teach, they just don't fit where you are in your life. So
Mm.
creating relationships online, offline, leveraging your local chamber of commerce, getting to know people in your city. You don't have to just obsess about content creation and followers. Who cares? It's an option, but it's not your only means of building your private practice. So having relationships online and offline. And then the last piece is the movement in terms of your leadership, your decision
Mm-hmm.
making. What type of things are you ready for? Do you want to hire an office manager, but you are not sure if you can afford to pay them longer than 2 months? Then we probably need to hold off on hiring an office manager just because that's a financial decision that you're not in a position to make. And if you're going to bring someone in, they want to know that you can keep them for at least 3 to 6 months instead of this
Right.
being an experiment, especially if they leave another job where they're
Mm-hmm.
consistently making money and being able to take care of the household. So thinking about those things, if you want to add groups or intensives, if you want to add coaching and consulting or start a podcast, you can do those things at any point, but I recommend doing them after you have a full caseload because some of these things are going to be an experiment. And so if you've never
Mm.
created a course, just because you create it doesn't mean it's going to sell because you have to
True.
launch the course. So if you don't have the foundations of an email marketing system and all this tech and back end stuff in place, you're going to have a pretty course that's sitting there with no sales. So you are constantly assessing and reevaluating, okay, what is my practice ready for? What am I ready for as a CEO and as a leader? And what type of moves am I ready to make?
So much good information there. So the key takeaways for me in what you just shared are almost anything goes, and you're really giving opportunities to customize for that particular person to avoid getting stuck in that comparison trap or scarcity mindset. And whether it's any of those four aspects, that it can be adjusted, and it's all going to be based off of the vision that you have for your particular practice, the clients that you want to work with, What do you value? Where are you located geographically? All of those things matter so much. And if you get stuck in how one person is doing it, you brought up such a great point about how we see the end product. Someone doesn't promote their book necessarily full blown until it's ready to be published or out there for the world. We're not necessarily seeing, in all cases, everything that it takes to get to that finish line. The same thing with any process. So you were mentioning the example of someone who buys a practice from someone else or who's able to take their caseload from a group practice to their own private practice. And so there are exceptions to every rule. Just because somebody has $1 million practice, $1 million practice is not going to be the same as another $1 million practice. There are people that don't know how to manage their money. Structurally, it can be different. And so I think that's such an important thing to point out for people so that we don't get stuck and that we really make sure we're doing what works best for us. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think it's a lost art at this point, and I'm all about inspiration, but I do think
Mm-hmm.
that before we consume content and consume just all this inspiration, especially if you struggle with imposter syndrome at any point, I think you need to just take some time and get offline and make it an internal process of sitting down, old school vision board if you do it digitally, or if you decide, get out some glue sticks and
Got mine right over here on the
magazines and
wall.
poster boards, you're my kind of
Yeah.
woman. So doing those things, say, okay, what do I want? Not what are they doing or what should I be doing? Because some of the content can be low key threatening. Like, if you're not doing this, your practice is gonna fail. Is it though? Like, you don't even know what my practice is. And I've had that too. I've juicy moment number two. So I've had
Yeah.
some therapists from other Facebook groups come to my social media and tell me
Mhm.
what changes I needed to make, unsolicited completely, that just men, of course, what changes I needed to make and that I needed to do them and report back. Excuse me? Who are you talking to? Like, this is not
I
how
don't know
this
who that would
works.
work well for, quite frankly.
And it's mind blowing, just the audacity, you know what I mean? But that would have been an opportunity for me to go and just change all my marketing because someone else recommended I do so and was considered a guru. But I'm like, for what purpose? They don't know me. They don't know my clients. They don't know my journey. They don't know my story. They don't
Mm-hmm.
know who's creating content. And for a long time, it was my interns, and she was doing an amazing job. We were getting referrals.
Mm-hmm.
We were getting sales. Everything was working. Why change it? Just because someone
Right.
else recommended it. So going internal and getting offline, listening to your heart and holding true to your own vision helps you to stay focused and not get caught up in shiny object syndrome because someone else recommended something as an outsider. They're not qualified to give recommendations from the outside. Now, as a
Mm-hmm.
coach, once people are in my programs and I'm asking,
Sure.
yes, I audit their social media because I understand the goal, because we've had a conversation about it and we've got it all mapped out.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that would threaten the goal or slow it down, yes, I'm going to bring it to their attention. But
Sure.
outsiders, no, they're not the best people to listen to. And so that internal time of saying, no, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I serve people. And this is what I want from my practice and my life. I'm not going to let anybody change my mind. That's an outsider. That
Mm-hmm.
really helps with comparison and keeping things clear and simple.
There were clearly some things missing in that approach. And so I like how you give that contrast of if someone is seeking you out for some guidance and you've got some context, then
Yeah.
that's one thing. But if it's unsolicited and they're missing some valuable information, then it's not really helpful. And I can't see that being received very well. So you talk about relational marketing, and I'd love to talk about that. The relationship building aspect you were talking about online and in person. What are some go-tos that you have found the most helpful? And I recognize that it really needs to be customized to the person. In my mind, it's always, what avenue can you take that excites you and is something that isn't going to feel laborious and like a chore? That can take many forms. What have you found the most helpful?
Yeah, the most helpful for me, I'm an introvert, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't know that because I speak often and I'm on
Yeah, I wouldn't have
podcasts. And,
expected that.
oh my goodness, listen, I'm going in a cave as soon as we finish so I can just recover from the morning. As long as I have a cave with Wi-Fi, I'm fine. But what has been most helpful for me is like the online co-working sessions with other therapists and the
Yes.
networking meetings. And I have two types of networking meetings I go to. So sometimes I go to the networking meetings where I can just be a therapist working on my own notes and treatment plans and getting in simple practice, getting things cleaned up at the end of the week. And then there's other
Mm-hmm.
networking meetings I go to and I'm the expert. And so it's a co-working session, but because it's new therapists who are there, they get to ask me questions like, Cameisha, is it okay if I do this? And most of the time I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Like, you're not going to go to jail for everything. Like, it's okay. Just try it. And if it doesn't work,
Sure.
figure it out and change it. So being able to provide support in that way has been helpful. It's helped with
Mm-hmm.
lead generation, getting people um, familiar just with my podcast and my book and my courses and my coaching programs. But sometimes I do it just because I like serving. And I like giving back because I remember being a new therapist with a million questions. And I was terrified of like, who am I going to go to get my questions answered? Because honestly, my supervisor, he didn't know everything. He was an older white male. We had
Mm-hmm.
nothing in common. I found him because there were not a lot of options in Arkansas for people who had openings for supervision. And I just got paired with him and it was fine, but I would not have personally picked him. So
Mm-hmm.
because we're so different, there was just a lot of things that I didn't get a chance to learn from him. So because of that, I try my best to give back and to network and to build relationships and not with the efforts of, oh, I'm going over here so they can come follow me and then eventually enroll in my coaching programs. My coaching programs are premium price. I don't care if they enroll or not. If they want to, wonderful. But if they're not ready for that, then yes, they can listen to the podcast forever. Yes, they can buy the book that's $20. My heart is more about helping and serving and building
Yeah.
relationships that way. So even if 2 years from now, if they need a referral and I know their niche and I know where they're located, I will send them clients. And I keep a list of people that I have really
Mm-hmm.
good relationships and where they are, especially if they're in my Facebook group, because it doesn't hurt me to not share my resources and referrals
True.
and whatever else they need. If it's an insurance agent or a financial advisor, like I want to make sure that I know them well enough that I can give them good information and good people who
Right.
can also help them in other aspects of their journey. So those online co-working sessions, the networking sessions are good. My local chamber of commerce has been good. Local women's groups, even on Facebook. I'm like the the resident therapist for a lot of them, and some people have coaching programs, and I'm like the resident mental health expert inside the coaching programs because it's still business and it's mindset. But if you have mental health challenges, it's going to be harder for you to run your business. So that's where I come
Mm-hmm.
in. Those are paid services, of course, but I enjoy all
Mm-hmm.
those things because all of that is relationship building for me. And so if there's an
It is.
opportunity for me to get in front of a group of people, I take those because I'm introverted and I would rather not do 25 one-to-one coffee dates. But if there's a group
Great
where
point.
there's 50 people that are going to be there and I have to be there for 2 hours, so be it. I can do that.
Yeah.
But I know that
I
about
am a huge
myself.
fan of how you operate, and I love how you still stay true to some of the things that you referenced from early on that you haven't lost sight of. One key piece was when you were starting off, you weren't in a position where you could necessarily afford a lot of what you're offering right now. So you offer a variety, and there's so many different ways to access you and these resources and this information, which I appreciate. And the other piece too is you were talking about the person who had told you it's going to take you 2 years and you didn't forget that. And so
Yeah.
for you, you have come up with a program that is going to help people get there a lot quicker. And so it's wonderful. Well, I really appreciate not only the work you do, but how you do it and how you offer these services in so many different ways. So I am excited for people to get a copy of the book, tune into your podcast if they haven't already. So share with people how they can get a copy, listen to the show, or learn more if they want to work with you and access your program.
Yeah, so everything is on my social media. It's at Cameisha Brewer on all social media platforms. It's my website, cbrewerconsulting.com. And as soon as you go to the website, there is a pop-up that says pre-order your copy of the CEO Clinician book. And once you get on that page, you'll be able to see the links to the podcast and all the other resources I have. I always do workshops. I'm doing an end of year workshop here in a couple of weeks to help therapists get a grip on what the next year needs to look like. And if you want to be off for 2 weeks next year, then we got to backtrack and reverse engineer your entire strategy for the next year to get you ready for that. So
Yes.
all those resources are available on the website and on my social media. And I am personally signing everyone's copy of the book. So when you pre-order, meaning you order before January 4th, the day before my birthday, when the book officially comes out, you get an audio training of chapter 12. I am reading chapter 12 to you. So you get to hear my voice and my heart. You get the workbook to use it while you're reading the book. You get that. And you also get a personal invitation to the book launch party, which is January 11th. And those three things, those three goodies and bonuses are only available for people who pre-order. So make sure you grab your copy early.
I love it. So many valuable takeaways today and so much good information for people to access. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for having me.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.